This film contains triggering and sensitive material with mentions of violence, homicide, sexual assault, and crimes against women. Viewer discretion is advised. If you find yourself feeling triggered or in need of immediate emotional support or crisis intervention, please reach out to any of the resources listed below. On this new path, our youth seek to understand why Indigenous women are depicted in the media in ways that contribute to the ongoing crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women.
It's something that lots of people even don't want to talk about, and it's hard for people to understand what the issue is when it doesn't happen to them.
Society views our lives as not important. They'll just blame us for going missing. They think that they could just get away with it because we deserve it.
We as Indigenous women have to fear for our lives, essentially, wondering if we're going to be the next statistic.
By understanding these experiences, they aim to empower Indigenous women to embrace and express their sexuality with strength and confidence.
We haven't really had much Indigenous women in media, especially 10, 30 years ago, unless they were to be sexualized objects.
Indigenous women were very poorly represented. I have my own personal experience because I was adopted into a white family, and my mom, she would show me the movie Pocahontas. She would be like, there's you, like there's someone that looks like you on TV. And I fell in love with her as a young child, and I found out that representation that they had was just completely romanticized of our Indigenous women.
The way that Indigenous women have been represented in the media was voiceless back then. Running from burning teepees into the arms of white men, I feel like that was the narrative. Nobody asking us to tell our own stories.
We have young Indigenous girls that are watching shows. I remember wishing that I could see more Indigenous-like representation, and then some roles that I would see would be sexualized, which kind of creates this harmful thought process of, is that how I'm supposed to be? Or like to boys, it's very, very harmful because it's like they could just be growing up looking at that thinking, okay, that's how Indigenous women should be viewed.
The sexy Indian princess, the costumes that we protest every single year. It annoys me that people don't think it's serious and they say it's just a costume. That sexualization of Native women plays out in real life, and we pay for that with lives, and we lose people we love.
We have a long history of misrepresenting women of color. When we have media representations of Indigenous women, we're also learning stereotypes and tropes, and these tropes have real world effects and definitely affect the lived experiences of Indigenous women.
I will get approached by people that I don't want to get approached by. I will get these horrible fetishized words thrown at me. They'll always start off with like, you are so entrancing to me.
People would call me Pocahontas. They think we're exotic.
Oh, I'd love to marry like a Native woman because they have such strong features and they're so gorgeous. And I'm like, I'm not here to please you. Like, I'm here for myself. I'm here for my life.
They don't think we have respect for ourselves. The way that we see ourselves is nothing like how people sexualize us, and it's like they want us to be like how the cartoons are.
The first place we learn about people is in our families. As we move into this media environment, starting very young, our ways of understanding people are mediated through the cultural texts around us.
It starts at home, really. Like even people's grandparents, how they have seen Indigenous people in the media. We've been looked at from the white man's perspective. How they see things is how their kids see things, and their kids see things that are old narratives, these old narratives that are still on repeat.
It's like a big snowball effect, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger. So it's hard to really undo that brainwashing from millions of people.
It's a lot of unlearning to do. I notice whenever I try to educate people, they have to unlearn a lot of things that they have grown up with throughout many years. It's a whole generational thing that they have learned, these harmful stereotypes of how Indigenous women are. They look at us as something that's weak, or look at us as something like we're an object, something that they can just take, something that they can just play with and then just get rid of, essentially. It stems from colonization, stems from the Western ideals of how society looks at us, wanted us to be. And if we aren't portrayed in that certain way, then are we truly women? Or if we aren't catering to these men, like, what's the point of even being a woman?
They think that we're just here for sex for them. And that's traumatizing to feel that's all we're good for. And I have seen people I love give up on themselves because that's all they think that they're good for. And now they're gone. The first time something scary happened to me, I was 7 years old. I remember bugging my mom to go to the park, and we were living on D Street. My mom was like, no, I don't want to go. So I'm like, fine, I'll go by myself. It was the middle of the day. I was just playing at the park alone. And then I remember seeing the man on the bike. He did like a whole lap around the school. I started to leave. And as I was leaving, I could hear the bike come up behind me. And he like turned his head to the side and he was like, do you want to go for a ride with me? I just ran like all the way home. And that was the first time where I knew that non-Native men were coming to my neighborhood to prey on Native kids. That was like the beginning of non-Native men following me, harassing me, looking at me, and I know what they were looking for. And that was just our normal. If you talk to any Native woman in Thunder Bay, like they all have the same stories. They would just follow us in their cars and they would just stare at us. They would throw things at us. It's like these men just assume if you're Native, you're a sex worker. It never stopped. It never stopped till the day I moved away as an adult. So my mom, because of her trauma that she experienced in 60s Scoop, she struggled with addictions. And then I had already been in and out of foster care. And I was struggling with addictions. I never had money for clothes, had to steal food. I was sick of being poor. So when I was 15, I decided that I was going to try sex work. And I had to do it while I was drunk. I did it for a week and I stayed drunk the whole time. But it was those same men who would prey on us, doing laps around. It's like they were just waiting for us to say yes. And I was just a kid. We were all just kids. It's like the poverty, the generational trauma, and addictions into sex work. And there were all these people like ready to take advantage. And I just wish when I was that young girl There were people on these streets to keep us safe because everyone knew it was happening. Everyone knew it was kids. And no one took it seriously. And because of that, we've lost so many women. And it's like I can't escape that.
Okay, today we're going to be talking about safety. I always use an acronym in this course, and I talk about the acronym WIN. And that stands for what's important now. Maybe we're in a situation where we need to fight and we need to defend ourselves. What I always say is never ever put in your mind, oh my gosh, they're too big, or it's a man, or, I've never fought before. What you're going to put into your head is what's important now. Like, for example, for me, my win is my son. He's home waiting for me. So I'm going to do whatever I can to make it home for him. All of us have a different win. But when you leave here today, I want you to have some skills. So we're going to chat a little bit about the 4 keys of personal safety. Let's say one evening you get this gut feeling like somebody's following you. They grab you. What are you going to do first? Scream. Yes. You are going to yell. You're going to shout. And you're going to scream. And this isn't well, what if I look weird? What if I look crazy? You want to. You want to look as crazy and as wild as you possibly can. We need to find our voices. That's powerful. That's a weapon. It also tells me, another big reason why I want you to yell and scream, it's telling me that you're breathing. Okay? And then you are gonna fight. And when you get away, what are you gonna do? Yes, you're gonna run, okay? I want you to run. You're gonna go somewhere safe. Okay, you're gonna run. The person catches you, you're gonna do it all over again. That's what you're gonna do.
Missing and murdered Indigenous people and Two-Spirited and women has always been something that I've been aware of, and most Indigenous people have their whole entire life. We've had to deal with all these types of violence that goes on, and I think a lot of us have seen on the news lots of negative things that have happened to Indigenous women constantly.
Media right now is a little bit stuck in the past in some ways, just in terms of its reliance on old modalities of media framing. In media studies, what we're looking for at the highest level of our analysis is how ideology is embedded within medias. Media is not innocent because they're not objective. Media, in fact, does not offer a mirroring of society or people. It offers a representation of people and things and ideas. And in this representation, what we're getting is a construction that a person is doing. And if they've done their job right, they've appealed to the viewer or the reader to bring them onto and into their way of seeing things. These colonial narratives continues today in present-day reporting of Indigenous women in the media.
During a very hard time in my life, I became very close friends with another nation, which we called ourselves because we were half Native, half Asians. And we became really close friends, but she went missing a year into while we were living together. And, sorry. We did a call out for people to search for her. 4 weeks later, they found her under a pile of snow, and there's nothing done about it. They just labeled it as an unsuspicious death. What I think the media lacked was looking at us as people. It was a lot of just us being like a number, when in reality, we are people with friends and with families, with loved ones who are always concerned or are looking for like a reason or for an explanation. And the media really lacks to give that explanation or to give us the representation that we deserve.
In stories around missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, what we have are stories that represent them frequently in terms of victimhood, but do not talk about them in terms of their lived lives in their communities, the jobs they do, the families that love them and they love, representing them in terms of victimhood solely in these narratives, or not actually offering enough information about them as people, leads to a false understanding of who they are in society.
Yeah, this is my foster home, and I grew up here. This is the room that I would practice dancing in as a little girl, and then this was the school where I got traumatized as a child. It's like right across the street. And then there used to be a clock up here, and I taught myself to spin looking at this clock. I would be like, okay, I gotta spin this way, and then I gotta spin this way, and then I would practice in this space. Yeah, and then I bring those stories into my dance classes, like when I'm teaching powwow dance classes or making videos, just trying to like help other people like me like learn to dance, because it's empowering, dancing. Yeah, so I was living here and I started a business, Aboriginal apparel. I was like, had it in my dream. I was like, I'm gonna go to powwows and have a powwow business so I can dance all summer. From here, I applied for and went to college in Toronto for fashion design, so I could learn how to make better regalia. This one, I used the inspiration from Shannon Gustafson. She's like a local fabric designer. And Shannon made my beadwork, and it's like Ojibwe floral, and it has my Anishinaabe name, which is Nanukose, hummingbird. And then I dance with this, something I always dance with. And like, I would always think about like, why was my life so hard? And so I eventually went to school for Indigenous governance, and after studying colonization and the Indian Act, I came to the conclusion, I was like, everything that, all of the pain, all the suffering my family has experienced is because of land. So I put this on my regalia. This is like what will help our communities. This is what I truly believe, like having land back. So I put that in my regalia. That's what I danced for. And I chose red. I wanted to dance for MMIW, so I chose red for my beadwork.
I think media really has an influence. Women in media in general have been hypersexualized, but especially Indigenous women. It definitely, I think, contributes a lot to MMIW.
There's barely any media about Indigenous people, and when there is, it's mostly having to deal with like drug addiction or domestic violence. That always like make us look bad.
Yeah, in the media, there's nothing ever positive put about us, right? It's always so much negative stuff, like, why isn't our people being put out there when we're doing good things, genuinely trying to move and help the community and help our people grow? How are people going to look at us? They're going to look at us with that negative light, how the media portrayed us.
And it's mostly us being portrayed as like a victim or someone that does need to be saved, and it's always something that brings more of our reputation down as people, or they focus on negative or what they did in the past.
A lot of the time they just want to check a box too, like, oh look, we did our reconciliation for the year or whatever. There's no backing behind it. They don't understand it, and it's just a buzzword almost.
I think the Truth and Reconciliation Day, the media thrived off of that. We're like, look at us, we're making a change, but like, just that one day you care about, so what about the rest of the year?
They just do it for that one day, and we gotta deal with this for rest of our lives.
Next day, we're nothing again.
Yeah. We're just like, oh,
Bye.
yeah, pretty much.
See you next year. Let's try and listen to our people a little bit more. Let's hear our people, you know? Let's tell our stories. You have the platform for it. We have the voice.
And actually be put out there and be on like mainstream media, putting us first and not after the fact.
There needs to be more opportunities for Indigenous people just in general. Like, we need more Indigenous journalists, more Indigenous crews and like characters. I think as a people, we are so amazing. I feel like now they're missing out. Not only us, but they are. Just having us be there is so much more important.
So right hand first, I want you nice and strong to hit my focus mitt here, and when you punch, I need you to yell. So I want you to envision punching through this mitt. I want you to find your voice. You can say, no, no, and then run. Okay, let's go. No. Yes. No. Now run, 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 run. Let's go. No. Nice, no. Nice, run, run, run. Get out of there, let's go. No. Nice, no. Nice, run, run, run. No. Woo! Let's do it again. Okay, let's go.
There are positive and negative things out there still on the media. And I feel like it's changing into something better with people speaking up and making change.
It's getting out there a little bit more now. More and more discussions like this, I think it builds the foundations of how we can move on in the future and be better as a society.
Yeah, I learned a lot of things I didn't know, things that are gonna be there for me in the future to pass down to my future generation.
And they gave us like the steps to overcome this media stump or the over-sexualization of us, and we just need to be heard.
I think it's very important that we are shining light on like this topic. I'm happy that like all of us are here and all the people that we interviewed get to share their story and get to shine light on something like this, because it is so swept underneath the rug and not a lot of people know about it. And it makes me sad, but also grateful and thankful that I am here and with you guys too to share.
First thing, go! Yell! Yell! Where's your voice? Yes! Okay, come on! You're strong, fight! What's your win? What's your win? There you go, there you go. Get that voice, find your voice! Find your voice! Yeah, here you go, 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 run, run, have the mix, run! Good job, good job, excellent. Woo! Love it! Amazing! Woo! Good work, girl! Nice! Nice work!
I think now, with the representation in the media of Indigenous women, it's kind of like the long overdue recognition that we've been waiting for. You know, for a long time in the media, Indigenous women were not represented correctly or were represented by non-Indigenous people. I think it's so important now to be able to take that back and to put it in our own hands, kicking the door open for other Indigenous women to come in and to be able to share their stories and to represent Indigenous women properly and respectfully and how we truly are. And I'm really excited to see more of that because it's what we deserve.
We're having more content coming out. I think with the residential schools discovery, it did really like awaken a lot of North America. Finally having the evidence shown, like with how many mass graves or how many unmarked graves, really made Indigenous people viewed and shown. I hope it started a movement and it will continue to be a movement, and that we won't just like disappear from media again.
In media nowadays, Indigenous women are writing scripts, they're directing, they're producing. We're taking over in all aspects of media, and I feel so fortunate and lucky that I get to grow up in this time, to be in charge of how I want to be portrayed. I don't want to be sexualized. Throughout the years, I've just looked for things and wanted to be a part of things that I think are positive and having a say in what we work in. It's okay to say no if you feel like it's something that isn't for you or isn't something that you want to be a part of. When I do stuff, I represent my family. I represent my mom and my grandmas and my kukums, and everywhere I go, I carry that with me. How hard we've worked to get to this point of where we are in the media right now.
I was in and out of foster care, and then when my mom got me back, she took me to a powwow here in Thunder Bay. I wanted to learn to dance. I just fell in love with it immediately. So my mom, she was like, go follow behind those women and go do what they do. So I just would follow the jingle dress dancers around. Over time, the powwow community in Thunder Bay took me under their wing. They would tell me stories, why our dancing is important. It's not just dancing, it's not just a costume. Dancing is about healing. It's about Nimagage, dancing for a reason. When I teach people to dance, we're dancing through hard things. You can hold those hard things that you've lived through, because that's what I did. I held in my heart all those hard things I lived through as a kid. I would just dance, and I think that they couldn't take this away from me, this dance. I would dance till I couldn't dance anymore, and I was able to heal from all that hard stuff and feel beautiful and feel safe in my regalia and empowered. That was my safe place, to dream of a better life. I'm living a good life now. I work in my community to protect young people from this, to help build self-esteem so they can get out of that way of life. I love all those women in Thunder Bay that we lost because of fetishization, sex work, human trafficking, abuse. They don't get over that trauma. It's traumatic. And I don't want that for our kids. I love our babies. They need to be safe.
What can happen and what is happening is change. It's happening in small ways and sometimes in big ways. One of the most wonderful things that have happened in challenging the representation of Indigenous women in Canada is the use of social media to advocate for better representation, more authentic representation, more frequent representation. And these have led to changes in society. These have led to more awareness of problematic portrayals of people. And these have definitely made government even take into account the ways in which policy needs to change. So they've had very profound effects. And I think that while digital activism might have an endpoint in terms of influence, I think that we don't know what that endpoint is yet. So it can be quite far-reaching.
We need safe spaces for people to heal from trauma. We need more systems set up to protect vulnerable people on the street. And I think a lot of it too is like addressing the systemic inequalities of poverty, addiction. I feel like we're very incrementally moving towards reconciliation. Like there are some Canadians and non-Native people who are trying to do that work. Canadians need to take it upon themselves to educate themselves.
They talk about MMIW, but they don't know the full, the depths of MMIW and how it affects the communities, families, friends, loved ones, everyone around them. It doesn't just affect that person that goes missing, it affects the whole community. Something that they need to unlearn, they need to educate themselves on. Instead of being part of the problem, they need to help fix the problem. Just being able to keep the conversation alive, being able to talk to others, being able to talk to not just Indigenous people, but non-Indigenous people too. To be able to just open their minds or to continue the conversation, I think is so important to do, to be able to break those cycles of those harmful stereotypes.
We need to be like educating boys from a very young age. Like, yes, we should be having education with like young girls about like behaviors to watch out for, but really we should also be like getting to the root of the problem on educating young boys from like a very young age. They shouldn't be looking at young girls as property. That kind of behavior, if it's not corrected at a young age, it can get worse and worse as they get older.
You have to teach people how to treat you, and educating without shaming them, because if you just get mad at people, it's not gonna like help them understand. So that's why it's really helpful to say, watch this TV show, watch this movie, because this is written by a really powerful Indigenous woman, and you can learn something in a way that's more easy to digest. Indigenous women, Indigenous people, we have so much to offer. We have so many beautiful stories passed down, new stories, old stories. We're storytellers. We're the ones working on the way that we reclaim our sexuality and the way that we see ourselves and respect ourselves. And the media does have a lot to do with that, because if your grandparents or parents didn't ever see themselves on TV, you just don't feel as proud. But now I feel super proud because I see all these types of girls that look like me and look different, and it's taken so long for us to have a moment. Now people care. Now people want to know and people want to support, because it's time.
The over-sexualization of Indigenous women in the media plays a significant role in perpetuating harmful stereotypes and contributes to the ongoing crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. For years, media has portrayed Indigenous women as overly sexualized, exoticized, or as objects of desire, often neglecting the complexity of their identities and experiences. It is essential to challenge these damaging representations and amplify the voices of Indigenous women who are fighting to change the narrative. By acknowledging these harmful stereotypes and educating the public, our youth are working to create a safer place for Indigenous women in film, on social media, and in daily life.